Welcome to The Outlet, an OTG production.
What's up, NBA fans? Welcome to another edition of The Outlet. With me, as always, Parth.
Hey, Nick. What's going on?
What's up, Parth? Getting ready for these rankings, and today at number 13, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. Before we talk about the Bucks, here's a clip from last season.
He's going to probably go over to Dragic in that area.
Bayless gets it for the Bucks. How about that? Pachulia back in the game. Jared Bayless off the glass.
Oh, would that have been just great?
2 seconds. Middleton.
This was one of the plays of the year, in my opinion, even though it came against my Miami Heat. This is hard to watch, but I'm happy it happened in Milwaukee, so you could see like the crazy fan reaction.
Yeah, that was pretty sick play. I mean, you think they're going to lose the game. Zaza Pachulia saves the ball, and then they hit that shot.
And what do they do with Zaza? They trade him away. The Dallas.
Okay.
Nice save, Zaza. I'll see you later.
But let's talk about the Bucks ranking. You think there's a fair ranking for the Bucks?
You know, I think it is a fair ranking. They're one of the up-and-coming teams in the East, and they have a ton of potential, like incredibly insane amount of potential.
Yeah, they really do. They have a ton of potential. Their wings are pretty crazy with Chris Middleton, the Greek freak. They got Jabari Parker coming back. Michael Carter-Williams is still pretty young. So a lot of young guys with a lot of potential, and they picked up Greg Monroe this year. So I like this team a lot.
Yeah, as do I.
I hate their coach, but he does a good job.
Why do you hate Jason Kidd so much, man? What did he ever do to you?
I wonder why. But we'll save that for another podcast. Let's talk about key returners for the Bucks. Greek freak, Chris Middleton, Michael Carter-Williams, Jabari Parker's come back from injury. We got O.J. Mayo, John Henson, Jared Bayless. Who do you like to have a big year?
You know, there are a lot of easy choices, but I'm going to not go the easy route, which is always a bad idea, but whatever. And I'm going to go with O.J. Mayo. I feel like I remember when he was drafted, I think he was drafted in the same draft as Kevin Love was, but he was drafted, I think, before. And then Minnesota and Memphis made the swap, which sent O.J. Mayo to Memphis. And I remember a lot of people on YouTube at the time, if you go check out that clip, everyone's like, "Oh my God, they traded O.J. Mayo for this white guy," and that white guy ended up being really damn good. And O.J. Mayo's still trying to find his way in the league. And he was really touted coming out of high school, going to UCLA, or not UCLA. He went to USC.
Yeah.
But I remember Lisa Salters doing a ESPN E60 on him and saying hey, this guy is the next LeBron James coming out of high school. It hasn't really worked out for him. But what he can do is he can shoot the ball. And what do the Bucks need? They need shooting. And so I think if O.J. Mayo can find a way to get on the court, I think he was like the sixth man last year for this team. I think Middleton has that two-guard spot locked up. But O.J. Mayo needs to find a way to get on the court because his shooting can really help this team. It's just that this team is so good defensively. As soon as he enters the game, he's probably the weak link. And so you never want to be that guy. So I think an improvement in defense and the more minutes he gets on the court, the more he can stretch the floor and really be a valuable asset for this team.
Like you mentioned, talent has never been the problem for O.J. Mayo. It's really been his consistency. He's had some times to shine, but he never can really do it. And then sometimes he has some off-the-court issues, I think, that really mess with him. So it'll be interesting to see if O.J. Mayo can give him that extra scoring punch off the bat and be that sixth man that you're talking about. For me, I'm going to go with Michael Carter-Williams as the guy I think needs to have a big season. They traded for him last year. You know, Jason Kidd loves point guards. Carter-Williams doesn't really have a jump shot, so he really needs to add that to help this team because, like you mentioned, their floor spacing isn't necessarily great. So if Carter-Williams can solidify his jump shot, that would really help this team.
I think that's a great choice, and I think because he doesn't have a jump shot, Jason Kidd is the perfect coach for him. Just because Kidd didn't enter the league with a jump shot. I remember there were jokes about calling him Asen without the J because he doesn't have one. But props to Jason Kidd. If you look at I believe he's in the top 5 in career three-pointers made, and that's through hard work and constantly redefining his shot and refining his mechanics and stuff. So he is definitely one of the best coaching options for Michael Carter-Williams in terms of developing his jump shot. Jason Kidd's knows what he's doing in that regard.
Exactly, and I think he knows a thing or two about playing the point guard position, so definitely help Michael Carter-Williams out. Let's talk off-season moves. The Bucks did make a splash this year. They picked up Greg Monroe. Huge move. They also picked up Vasquez from Toronto, Chris Copeland, drafted Vaughn. They lost guys like Ilyasova, Jared Dudley, and like we mentioned, Zaza. What moves do you like?
Greg Monroe is a great addition for this team. Someone who you can throw the ball down to in the post and he'll get you a bucket. I think on this team he's going to be guaranteed at least 18 points and probably like 7-8 rebounds. This team has a lot of length, so I don't want to say he'll get 10 boards a game just because I feel like a lot of boards will get stolen from him just by like the Tetakumpo reaching out from the 3-point line and grabbing a rebound in the paint. Like that can definitely happen. So, but he'll be big time offensively for them. That's I think one of the best additions in the offseason. And I think Grievous Vasquez just fits right into that kind of mold that they want at point guard. He's a bigger guard. Not really too quick, but has hit big shots in his career before. He hit a huge one last year with Toronto. Didn't win them the game or anything, but it was a big time shot. I think game 3 and definitely kept him in the game. And then I don't know too much about Rashad Vaughn, but I know he can shoot the ball. That's his bread and butter, and this team needs it. So hopefully he'll be a good pickup for them in the draft.
Yeah, I love the pickup of Monroe as well. Like you said, it gives him that body in the paint. He's a real physical presence, something that they lacked. They had Zaza Pachulia starting at center last year. No offense to him. Greg Monroe's a huge upgrade. And Greg Monroe can even get better. I think maybe they can help him out defensively. He hasn't always been the greatest defensive player in Detroit, but playing around the guys like the Greek Freak and Chris Middleton and Michael Carter-Williams and Jabari Parker, they're all long, athletic guys. You know what I mean? They can really defend positions and get all over the court. And the Bucks played some great defense last season. I actually like the Vaughn pick because I feel like you said, he can come in and score. It's something that they might need right away. If not, they can let him develop because they have other wings that are capable of playing. So not a bad pick there. Vasquez, I'm okay with the pickup. I don't really necessarily like trading a first-round pick for him just because I think maybe you could probably get more value out of that pick. Not necessarily instantly, but in the future.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Any moves you don't like from the Bucks?
Well, I think Jared Dudley is a big loss. I don't think people respect his game as much as they should. Yeah, he's a good player. He's a very even keel. He's a veteran. He's a leader. Can shoot the 3-ball well. Always will give you effort on the court. And I think they'll miss a little bit of that just because some of their guys, like OJ Mayo, came into camp overweight a couple of seasons ago. Like I don't ever see Jared Dudley doing that. He's a true professional, and he's awesome if you ever listen to him on any sort of NBA podcast. So I'm a big fan of Jared Dudley and hate to see him leave Milwaukee. But he's in a good situation now in Washington.
Yeah, very true. I don't like the loss of him as well because I thought he came in, he played well for them. He gave him like a boost towards the middle of the season because he was really able to space that floor with his 3-point shot. And like you said, he's professional. He had those rough seasons in, I think, Los Angeles, but then in Milwaukee, game picked it back up. I think he just like works well with Jason Kidd. So I was actually kind of surprised they got rid of him.
Yeah, I remember him on a podcast with, I believe it was Zach Lowe of Grantland. And he said those Clipper years he was hurt. So he couldn't really play and couldn't really do what Doc Rivers wanted him to do. And so, I mean, that was a rough stretch for him in his career. But Doc needed him to play, and he played through injury. So props to him for that.
But let's talk X factor for the Bucks this year.
My X factor is Jabari Parker. This team is one of the worst offensive teams in the league, bottom 5 offensive rating last season. And majority of that season was without Jabari Parker. He showed a lot of promise and definitely would have been in contention for Rookie of the Year if he was able to stay healthy. But this team needs scoring, and I think Jabari Parker, who looks a lot leaner nowadays, will give it to him. I know at Duke he had to play a lot of center, and so naturally, if you're going to take that beating in the paint, you want to bulk up a little bit. And I think he's a 3 in the league, maybe a stretch 4 at times. He can definitely play that position, but I think as far as where you want to slot him, I think small forward and the wing, he can be a really, really good player. And now with his with his new body that he had time to really work on as he was rehabbing from that torn ACL last season. I think he's going to have a huge season.
Yeah, I definitely am excited to watch Jabari Parker. I was pretty high on him coming out of the draft. I thought he was going to have a huge year. It really hurts to see him tear his ACL. So hopefully he comes back, has a huge season, gives him that extra boost. My X factor is going to be shooting for this team. I just want to see the guys take the next step in their shot, like Michael Carter-Williams, Greek Freak, and then Jabari Parker was shooting pretty well last season. Same with Chris Middleton, but just the consistency from the other guys really space that floor and be able to attack the paint because they have some really great weapons on this team.
They'll have options to shoot because if you're getting beat in the paint by Greg Monroe, you're doubling off of one of those guys like Michael Carter-Williams, for example, because you know he's not going to shoot the ball from three. So if he can develop that sort of consistency by making those threes and making people who double Greg Monroe or whoever else is in the paint, if they double off of if you're the person they double off of and you can consistently make shots, that double team is going to stop going to the paint as hard. It'll be a soft double. They'll stop doubling at all. So I think the shooting is definitely an X factor that I like that you picked.
Because the shooting just helps with all the other aspects. They have so many athletic slashers that can really attack the rim and the presence of Greg Monroe. So they'll be just cooking on all cylinders. And we already know they're a crazy defensive team. So it could be a big season for the Bucks if that works out. Best case scenario.
Best case scenario for this team. What did they end up with last year? The 6th seed?
6th seed, yep.
I think they did get better, but the East also got a lot better to match them. I think best case scenario would be they end up with the 4 seed. I don't see it happening, but a lot of the teams in the East are made of glass, and so I mean Milwaukee could luck up and get home court advantage in the first round.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The 4th or 5th seed is definitely best case scenario. One thing you like about a young team like this, there's going to be internal improvement. You know what I mean? So they don't really have to always worry about pieces gel. They picked up, Greg Monroe, but the other guys, they're just going to keep getting better, playing with each other for another year. I think that helps out. And I'd like to see this team really start gelling and working towards maybe a dynasty possibly in the future if they really all take that next step, because we know they're full of potential.
Right, and they have a really good mix of young talent and then older veterans as well as middle-aged veterans. Middle-aged in terms of NBA middle-aged, like mid to late 20s. But they have a lot of young guys who have solid mentors and a lot of the veterans on this team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Worst case scenario for the Bucks.
Well, I don't think. I don't know. I'm debating on whether they're a lock for the playoffs or not, regardless of what happens as far as injuries into their roster. I think they have enough to make the playoffs if one of their key cogs goes down again this season, just because they're that good defensively. So I would say the 8th seed, they take a step back from their 6th spot last year and end up with the 8th seed and possibly face a juggernaut like Cleveland, Chicago, Miami, one of those teams, or even Atlanta. I'm disrespecting them and not even mentioning them. And they were number 1 last year. But if they face one of those teams, I don't think offensively they can keep up. So I think definitely trying to stay out of the 7 or 8 spot would be ideal for this team, but it could happen as their worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think they're probably a lock for the playoffs. So worst case for me is going to be the 8th seed, and their offense just doesn't take a next step, and the Greg Monroe addition doesn't help enough, and they still have that issues on the offensive end, and they can't shoot the ball. And like you said, they end up facing a powerhouse in the first round, and it's a quick knockout. So, but let's move on to the truth.
So for the truth today, I decided on going on with the flame emoji, and that's because they were the number 1 hot pick in our OTG Roundtable Eastern Conference offseason winners, which is an article that I'm sure, Nick, you can put in the description. It's a really fun read, a lot of good writers on there, multiple perspectives. But the overwhelming theme is that, hey, in the East, the Bucks did the best this offseason with what they got.
Exactly. I know when you got multiple perspectives picking the same team, they usually probably did a good job. So shout out to the Bucks for a good offseason. But you're going to watch the Bucks on League Pass?
If you want to watch the Bucks, you're going to have to watch them on League Pass. They're only on national TV 4 times. And that's probably because of their play style. They're not a really efficient or exciting offensive team, as we've discussed throughout the podcast. But that's probably why they're only on national TV 4 times. But I'll watch them. I know they're coming to DC early in the season. So, and some of my friends and I live close to DC, and so we were looking at games to go to, and OKC was obviously a big game just because of that whole Kevin Durant dynamic. And we were looking at ticket prices for them, and they were like $47 for like upper deck seats. We were like, God damn, we don't want to pay that, especially for all the way at the upper deck. So Bucks play like a week before, a week after OKC comes into town, and their upper deck seats are like 16 beans. So I might be going to see the Bucks play live, baby. No league pass.
There you go. Check out the Bucks live. Get a good deal on tickets. You can't beat that. All right, Parth, would you rather watch the Bucks or Neil Patrick's best show ever?
You know, what show is Neil Patrick Harris on? Was he on like
How I Met Your Mother?
How I Met Your Mother? Yeah, my sister loves that show. I've never really gotten into it, never really seen it. So I don't know too much about Neil Patrick Harris. But I mean, he did say it's the best show ever. So I may have to watch it. But
He's
until
a funny
then,
guy.
He's a funny guy?
He's a funny guy. But I'm not I caught the first episode. I wasn't huge on the show, but I like him in How I Met Your Mother. He's probably the funniest guy on that show.
All right, so we'll give Neil Patrick Harris a chance, and I'll watch the best show ever. The best show ever is probably better than the Milwaukee Bucks offense. Season.
Yeah. All right, that wraps it up for today. Thank you guys for listening. And our next team, maybe next year, they might have an MVP on the roster.